Stock market investors, welcome back to the channel. My name is Jason. In today's episode, we're going to talk about SoFi stock and the massive, absolutely massive amount of institutional investors that have been piling into SoFi stock. I'm going to go over who is recently buying the stock, how many shares they're buying, how much do institutions in totality own, and who are some of the biggest owners of SoFi stock. Let's get into the video. SoFi investors, thank you for sticking around for the video. Do me a huge solid, hit that like button. It really does help us get into YouTube's algorithm. If you like this video, consider subscribing to the channel. A little bit of a down day for SoFi, $25.49. I actually bought some shares after hours. Anything in that $25 range is, interesting for me to buy. All right, over the last week, we were up 10%. Over the last month, up 22%. Year to date, still around 70%. Over the last year, 233%. Guys, when we're looking at SoFi's institutional ownership, I like to use Fintel and Simply Wall Street. They're some of my favorite tools to get all the great up-to-date information on SoFi stock, right? Right now, 1,056 institutional investors own SoFi stock, coming in around 610 million shares, about 51%, according to Fintel, right? And then if you could go here, you could search it any way you want. Man, Jane Street Global, 65 million shares, man. They just bought a ton of shares. And if you take a look at some of the top owners, you could click on shares and it kind of gives you from top to bottom on who owns the stock. And you could see, negative means that they decreased their position, and positive means they've increased their position, right? And then green is a company that just bought SoFi shares, like Norges Bank and Cubis Systematic Strategies, added 4.2 million. And then we see Capital Fund trimmed by 13%. We see all these greens are new institutional owners who are buying up SoFi shares. There's a lot of them, man. A lot of new people in the SoFi investor community. And we look at the file date. We can take a look at the most recent dates, 8/29. That is today. We got a couple, SEI Enhanced U.S. Large Cap Momentum Factor ETF added 270,000. Lord Abbott Series Fund added 80,000. And this is over the last couple days. A lot of green, guys. A lot of green. VTSMX Vanguard's Total Stock Market Index Fund added 2% to their weighting, right? And you could go down and see who owns, who's buying in the most recent transactions. And then if you want to just look at who owns the most shares right now, Vanguard is coming in huge with 100 million SoFi shares. I like the way Simply Wall Street kind of breaks down the top shareholders of SoFi stock. The top 25 shareholders own about 39% of the company right now. That's, pretty solid, right? And we're looking at general public down to 45%. I want to see institutions crossing 55, 60%. It was below 50 not too long ago. According to Simply Wall Street, we're up to 627 million shares owned by institutions, right? That's great news. Because the more institutions and ETFs and that kind of stuff that own the stock, the more stable the stock price, right? And the better chance we have of increasing shareholder value, right? Jane Street Group, woo, baby. They currently own $1.6 billion worth of SoFi stock, guys. Sorry about the song and the hammering in the background. They're putting up a new apartment building right next door, so just bear with me, guys. And then we're starting to see BlackRock over 4%, right? D.E. Shaw. If we take a look at the top 25, more green than red, right? And then the red that we have seen, just trimming, 0.72%, that's a trim. D.E. Shaw down a little bit. Morgan Stanley, 2%, that's a trim. Two Sigma and Citadel, 8 and 5%, that's a trim. Renaissance Technologies, I'm not really familiar with them, but they cut their stake by 50%, around 5 million shares. ARK Invest owns 4.4 million shares. They increased their position by 119%. Millennium Management increased their stake by 249%. Big numbers, guys. Marshall Wace LLP, 88% increase. And then we're starting to see a lot of these big banks, big investment firms, Charles Schwab, Wells Fargo, Morgan Stanley, they own a ton of SoFi stock. Bank of America has increased their stake in SoFi by 70.3%. Voleridge Investment Management by 91%, Two Sigma by 50%, UBS Asset Management by 39%, and Jane Street Global, group, man, 475% increase. And I know it doesn't seem like a huge number, right? But 1% when you own a 2.5 billion shares, I mean, they're still increasing their position, right? So I want to break down for you guys who exactly owns SoFi stock. Some of the biggest companies in the world, including Vanguard, BlackRock, Bank of America, Morgan Stanley, Charles Schwab, Wells Fargo, are all over, the top 25. So very impressive stuff here, guys. Wells Fargo and all those guys, Charles Schwab, own over 5 million shares apiece. Morgan Stanley at 11, Bank of America closing in on 20 million shares, right? So it's great. And we've seen a huge increase in shareholder value recently. And it's not a coincidence that as institutional ownership increases, so does shareholder value, right? And if we take a look at this institutional ownership chart, we could see the stock price. It's hard to see. It's pretty faint, this line underneath the green kind of blocks, right? But we could see there was a huge decrease over the past 6 to 8 months in institutional ownership. And then, oh boy, we had that $1.5 billion offering. It was like around, 70 million shares at $20.58, right? So that's a good floor. If you want to sell cash secured puts over the next, 3, 6, 9, 12 months, $20.58, I think, is going to be a huge level of resistance for this stock. I don't see the people that gobbled up those 70 million shares selling out if it gets closer and closer to $20. And with the stock-based compensation over $25, the management team getting huge payouts, if it's over the 200-day moving average for 90 days or something like that, they're going to get paid out huge. So a little more dilution can come around between 4 and 6 million shares, right? But man, this is a huge increase. And we've seen the share price jump up in direct correlation. See this big jump up? Right in line with the institutional ownership, guys. And the numbers look really, really good. 610 million shares according to Fintel. And then Simply Wall Street has up to 627 million shares, right? So these are both updated pretty frequently. So I like to kind of compare and contrast from what we where we get our information from, right? Fintel's more on the daily, and I think SoFi gets updated every quarter, something like that, maybe every month. But Anthony Noto still owns 10 million shares, right? So that's a good thing. He's still got skin in the game, right? So individual insiders only own about 1.5%. General public coming in at 45%, and institutions over 50%, guys. That's great. I want to continue to see institutional ownership go up. Short interest is now below 10%, right? So if you're thinking about a short squeeze happening, if the short percent of the float is under 10%, the chance of a dramatic short squeeze happening, not really likely, guys. So be careful about who you're listening to about a short squeeze happening. I don't foresee that happening in the near future. If the short interest was in that 12 to 20% range, we could see a huge run up in stock price if there was a short squeeze, but under 10%, the last time I saw it was 8.5 to 9%, right? I want to see that in that 5% range over the next coming year or two, but institutional ownership over the next year, I want it over 55, maybe even to 60%, get general public down to around 40%. That's where I would be happy. That's a sweet spot for SoFi stock, guys. I just kind of want to bring you up to speed about what these institutional investors are doing. This is big money, man. These guys are whales. As you can see, some of these top shareholders like Jane Street Global just added a shit ton of shares, probably in that $20 range. So all of us that, have our price well below, I've been dollar cost averaging up. So my original average cost was $9 $10, but I've been buying shares, and I've also had some calls taken away from the recent run up in stock, and I bought back the shares, so that's increased my average too. So across all my accounts, I own like 355 shares. In the big dog account, around 4,100, and then 3 or 400 in my IRA and my wife's IRA. So we're cooking with gas right now, guys. And institutional investors, as we can see, huge jump up. I'm curious to see where this goes in the coming months. Is this going to stabilize? Is there going to be a sell-off? We'll have to see how it looks in the coming months, but I'll keep you up to date. Please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. I appreciate you guys tuning in. We just crossed 3,000 subscribers on this little baby investing account. I also have an NFL channel. We just crossed 18,000 there. JL Day NFL Show. If you want to check out some great NFL content, make sure you check that out. I'll leave a link in the description down below. You guys are the best. Peace.